Way back in our infancy, we put out a top 10 sci-fi movies, and it's fair to say it produced a reaction. As we said at the time, we welcome all opinions. We're not here to tell you what to like, just as much as you can't tell us we're wrong to like something. Art and entertainment is entirely subjective, which is what makes it great. Otherwise, there would be one film star, one comedian, one dance act, one musician. You get the point. Anyway, we listened, we read your comments, we made some notes, and we're here with the People's Top 10, made up entirely from what you told us was missing the last time. So if anybody dares ask where Star Wars is. Right then, what have the people chosen? If your main complaint about this film is that it's actually a horror, then you should probably walk away from this list now. Although we agree, it is terrifying. If the fine acting, great script, constant tension, sense of claustrophobia that haunts every scene due to the weather and their isolation from the rest of the world is not enough to draw you in, then just remember that a head severs itself from a body and walks away to cause further mischief. And it's done with a real life model rather than a coloured screen and a laptop. The monster could be anybody or anything alive, including inside-out dogs, meaning they spend most of the film looking over their shoulder with nothing to actually hunt. Kurt Russell's magnificently bearded hero has no special abilities or insight, but remains plucky and determined enough to see his role through, while everyone else swings between being the baddie and deserving of a flamethrower to the face to Kurt's only true ally. If you insist on being scared, this is one of the best ways to do it. Children of Men is a simple concept. Humans can no longer reproduce, meaning what's left of us is all there will ever be. And so we decide to use what little time we have to engage in a civil war. Of course, a film about everybody gradually dying wouldn't make it to number 9, and as ever in dystopian futures, hope remains. A pregnant lady has been discovered, and she must make it to an unspecified destination in order to save humanity. Hurrah! We have a film. Considered a modern classic by many, much of Children of Men was filmed in a documentary style, with the camera often chasing the action and putting the viewer at its centre. It makes for a visceral watch as we're swung around, meters from explosions, confused as to where we are and where to head next. It also has Michael Caine in it as a pot-growing humanist, so what's not to like? As the remake proved, RoboCop was about so much more than a killing machine battling with its human morals. Paul Verhoeven has spent his life highlighting the dangers of a society built on the priority of profits over everything, including life. Ironically, it made a fortune at the box office and spawned several sequels, just to prove that even the messages against the system are used to prop it up. Nearly 40 years after its release, it's fair to say his vision of the future wasn't far wrong. And with America now run by a man who epitomises everything that's wrong with the capitalist model, its descent into his dystopia will only be accelerated. If Ambient Electronica made a movie, well, it would be Solaris. But that's already part of our alternative top 10 sci-fi list. But Arrival would have been a decent first attempt. Amy Adams remains mellow and sedate throughout, and the aliens that resemble elephants on stilts lumber through the fog, spraying beautiful patterns on the window that separates them from us. As a professor of linguistics, she is tasked with communicating with them to find out what they want, and if it involves eating us. It tickles all the usual tensions associated with such visitors. One half of humanity wants to find out if they've got anything cooler than a PlayStation 5, whilst the other wants to blow them up. However, the bigger point at the heart of this film is about how our language defines our perception and understanding of reality. Taken to extremes in this film, as Amy Adams' character begins to comprehend their way of speaking, she also begins to see the world as they do. I won't go any further than this, so as not to ruin it, should you not yet have seen it. With the third part due for imminent release, the first two parts of this epic can surely not be spoiled by what is to follow. A painfully beautiful film, and that isn't just when Timothée Chalamet is on the screen. The Deserts and Vistas should have been nominated for Best Supporting Actor. Dune follows the age-old tale of those with it all insisting on having more, as control of the galaxy's greatest source of energy is bickered and backstabbed over. Throw into the pot some supernatural powers, an almost messianic figure threatening to emerge from the shadows if nobody kills him first. A rebel with gobsmacking eyes that he can't stop dreaming about, until they finally meet. And the family politics that come with running a planet. Oh, and some awesome fight scenes. This is an absolute gem. What's not to love about War League? The little dustman triggers all our nurturing desires with his big eyes and endless curiosity, and then finds love. It even tries to warn us that we're destroying our home. Unfortunately, the people who sell the disposable junk to us have endless pots of money to pay politicians to lie to our faces and get them to change the laws in their favour. So rather than heeding the message, we're sprinting towards making it a reality. On a lighter note, humans have become listless, overweight television junkies who no longer have to move other than to let their flatulence escape their onesie. It really is as pathetic as it is brilliant, and it stands proudly in our top 5. After taking on the downfall of society, Paul Verhoeven fast-forwards into the late 23rd century to show us the futility of war. And in order to avoid the usual traps of picking a nation America is currently upset with as the enemy, he pitches humans against giant insects. Told through the lens of 3 friends graduating military school, each is destined for a different role as a soldier, a pilot, and a strategist. They quickly adopt the prejudices and attitudes of their new tribe, initially struggling to resolve their personal relationships with the fact they are now enemies on the same side. As war breaks out, we follow it from all 3 angles, and by the end of the film, nothing is resolved, but victory is proclaimed, and the propaganda to back up the bold assertion begins. All insects are evil, and killing them is your duty as a human. The war must continue rather than search for a solution, because the fight for good is worth losing half a generation in bloodshed, and definitely has nothing to do with the war making a fortune for people who make guns. Sound familiar? It's probably because you've been watching the news. Why don't we ever listen to the people telling us the truth? Before we hit the top 3, and oh how we're going to hit it, give us a like and subscribe. 5-star us, even if you think we're only moderately entertaining. It helps the algorithm, and we all know that's the only thing that truly matters. If you ever wanted evidence that James Cameron has a time machine in his back garden, The Abyss may be it. The effects they managed to produce way back in the late 80s defied even their own expectations, and they're still a marvel to this day. Despite the shiny bits, The Abyss is underpinned by a solid script and flawless performances, and continues the theme of thoughtful contemplation versus shooting things in the head, when faced with a civilization we don't yet understand. A scientific research vessel is sent to help rescue a sunken submarine, meeting up with a team of Navy SEALs along the way. The personality clashes are inevitable, but without paranoid military guys, the movie world would be a dull and agreeable place. Making contact with an alien life form, the scientists are open to a cup of tea and a plate of biscuits, whilst the SEALs think the aliens just want to steal their homes and punch their children in the face, so better get the digs in first. Whichever side of the argument you're on, just sit back and let the visuals wash over you, and enjoy not having to deal with reality for a couple of hours. Other than in animation, it's rare to find such a colourful and optimistic vision of the future as we're presented with in The Fifth Element. Not to get completely carried away, Bruce Willis still lives in a tiny cramped flat and struggles for money, but the takeaway is a floating shop that cooks fresh outside your window. And your bed is made for you just by pushing it into a magical cupboard. The genius of allowing Jean-Paul Gaultier free license to design every outfit gave the film a cohesive and flamboyant style that made even a rubbish-strewn airport shimmer, and elevated every character irrelevant of their true nature. And the story isn't half bad. When an alien race leaves the key to saving the planet buried on Earth for several centuries, the vital and fifth element required to make it work descends at the moment of threat. Unfortunately, it gets blown up, but future doctors have moved beyond plasters and wet towels on the forehead, and can recreate it, or should we say her, from a few remaining cells. She escapes, bumps into down on his luck Bruce Willis, who happens to be an ex-military badass, and we have our heroes and an adventure, as they try to get her to the mystical weapon she is a part of. It's a joy to watch as they are chased around space, the Earth, through downtown traffic in a flying car, and on foot. There are gun battles, a Chris Tucker cameo that threatens to steal the show, comedy, slapstick, and the token bit of rudies. It has it all, except the number one spot. The overwhelming number of comments our initial list instigated revolved around complete bemusement at the omission of Alien, or Aliens. We've chosen the original, purely for its lasting impact on cinema and society in general. It was impossible to get stomachache for at least a decade, without wondering if it was your final moments approaching, or you just needed a big burp. Giving Geiger the job of designing the alien in question, and the world it inhabits, turned it from a simple monster movie into a handcrafted masterpiece. With its tiny arms that could barely pick its own nose, to the spindly legs that looked like they'd snap if you gave them a swift kick, and a mouth so small it'd take a month to eat your arm, its ability to strike from the shadows made it an ever-looming threat, causing the viewer to scare themselves about what might happen far more than anything that actually did. In a similar vein to Jaws, Alien makes you feel personally stalked, from the moment you realise something is out there, or even worse, in here with us. As the alien's appetite grows, the crew dwindles, and unlike most action heroes, Ripley uses her head and employs hiding and running away as the most effective way to win. The alien's image is forever etched onto our culture, and no matter how many silly things they do with it, it will remain there for a long time to come, which surely makes it a worthy number one. If you missed the original list that inspired this one, or our alternative top 10 sci-fi list, full of usually overlooked gems, please follow the links provided. Once you've liked and subscribed and 5-starred and yada 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 yada.